Welcome, Wargamers, to the ashen wastes of the mortal realms, because today we are talking about the Horns of Hashut. This is one of the newest warbands for the game Warcry. It came out in that big two-player starter set, Heart of Gur. They're really cool looking, and they have a very unique flavor, and really it's one that lays the groundwork for awesome story developments and possibly factions in the future. Now, I'll be honest, I was not super sold on this warband until I really got into the story of them, and I'm kind of coming around, and so I would like you to join me on that. The models are incredible. It's just I didn't know anything about Hashut, and so I needed some convincing to that it would live up to the hype that other people who knew about this character basically had put up for me. And so let's talk about the background of the Horns of Hashut and where they fit in with their deity and kind of as a faction within the mortal realms. Now, one thing I'd like to add right up top, if you are watching this video and you're interested in this faction, please consider using the affiliate link in my description down below. Not Just Gaming is an awesome store here in the US with 15% off all GW products, shipped really quickly, and using that link goes a long way to supporting me, my wife, this channel. It's all incredible stuff, and I thank you all for it. Now, for those of you who are new to Warcry or this particular warband, like I certainly was, the Horns of Hashut are a chaos warband that worship the deity of, wait for it, Hashut. Now, this is interesting to me because Hashut was an important character from the old world, that is Warhammer Fantasy Battles, if you are newer like I am. And really, to simplify it, it's a chaos Dwarven god. I guess Dwarven back then. And I know a lot of people who, are Age of Sigmar fans that held over or came back from Warhammer Fantasy Battles were so excited. Like, their interest really got piqued when Hashut was announced. Really just anything to do with them. Now, if you know a great deal more about Hashut as a character, please leave it in the description down below. All I know is it's the deity of the Chaos Dwarves, and there's a whole lot of imagery and that kind of thing we're going to talk about here in a sec. So at this point, I'd love to read this little blurb here that is in the, the Rot and Ruin Warband tome that came with Heart of Gur. It has like a little one-paragraph thing about Hashut. The mysterious entity known as Hashut is venerated by many beings across the mortal realms as a god of fire and tyranny, a merciless conqueror who offers his faithful the strength to survive and prosper at the cost of their eternal subjugation to his will. Often depicted as a blazing bull-headed monster wreathed in pitch-black smoke, he is worshipped primarily by chaos-corrupted Duarden who utilize their mastery of infernal industry to advance their baleful god's aims. Hashut's true nature and origins are a mystery to all but his most loyal prophets. It's not even certain that he is a true god at all. It is possible he is in fact a different form of demonic abomination. Perhaps an unimaginably ancient demon prince or some other foul entity that came into being eons ago before the world that was met its doom. Whatever the truth, Hashut's power is unquestionably on the rise. The Father of Darkness has a fondness for the blending of dark sorcery and with forgecraft. As such, his followers have been granted the secrets of creating demon engines and other nightmarish weapons of mass destruction. With these tools, they have conquered great spans of the mortal realms, transforming them into ashen wasteland upon which new demon forges and mustering grounds are soon erected. Many kingdoms of men have been subsumed into Hashut's growing empires, forced to accept a new master and a new existence of brutal, never-ending servitude in exchange for their lives. It is not only humans who bow before the Father of Darkness. Many different species and cultures now carry the dark banners of Hashut, having chosen the path of subjugation over extermination. Now, here's the thing. I know there's a lot more lore in Fantasy Battles than that little blurb. I'd love for you to share it and put it in the comments. I try to pin the most helpful comments for folks, but this is the lore as it is now. Not a lot of hard confirmations, but we can say that at least within their belief system, this is the deity of the Horns of Hashut. And there's a lot of references in there to Duarden, and so you may think, why are there no Duarden within this warband? Where are the dwarves if this is the chaos dwarf god? To put it as simply as possible with the rest of the lore that's in the Horns of Hashut section, the warbands that are collectively known as the Horns of Hashut are just one part of this greater army, the vanguard force, if you will, to a greater Hashut faction. And it's made up of non-Dwarden simply because they can physically move faster or carry bigger weapons. And so rather than being a rewrite of what a Hashut's army is, this is just a small nibble of a larger force, which, in numerous times here is described as largely Dwarden, mixed with hell forges and demon-infused technology and so on. Which I guess is cool. I guess it kind of feels like, hey, here's this warband with no dwarves because we want to get you excited for chaos dwarves. It just seems like a strange way to go about bringing Hashut into the setting, but it's the spear tip of a larger force that would all be much slower. Now, in all fairness, that's about the most interesting or unique thing about their background, is that they represent a larger force that people are more excited for. However, I do think, in the context of the box that they sold it in, it actually is a really great counter to the messiness of the Rotmire Creed, where we talked about them. They went from alchemists and doctors and stuff to brutal chaos warband. And that was their story arc is much more of a heel turn, how good intentions go the wrong way. This is a counterpoint to that of this, what is the most Warhammer Chaos Warband? They're evil for the sake of evil because metal music. Or whatever, just something awesome where it's just like, these are some straightforward classic chaos dudes. Might makes right, and Hashut in their minds is the mightiest. So excuse me while I instruct you in righteousness. And then they just run forward with flamethrowers. Right? That kind of primal math. There can be only one, and it's gonna be Hashut. Their deity calls for them to turn the realms into a fiery, ashen wasteland, perfect open expanse to be consumed by never-ending forges for Hashut. He's a job creator. He's building industry, people. Get on board. And by industry, I mean he's crafting, greater horrors to inflict greater tyranny. As for their mission in the Gnarlwood, Hashut spoke a vision to his prophets that the Gnarlwood needed to be cleared, so that his mighty army could march through it. And so this is not really a small plan. They understand that the Gnarlwood is so vast and complex that you can't send just an entire army through it, you'll lose your whole army. And while, clearing this place is not a great plan, it is a great teaser for a Chaos Dwarven faction, which I am now anxiously waiting for. These Horns of Hashut warbands went out and they tried, hacking at trees or even burning the forest down, but it's so thick and so impenetrable that nothing was working. So at one point, they found a member of the Rotmire Creed, our other warband from the Heart of Gur set, and they basically tortured him into getting a ton of information, and he spilled the beans about Talaxis in the center, this, place that's a Seraphon ship that crashed. It's full of weapons and resources that can cause untold devastation. So now, the Horns of Hashut are like, okay, wait a minute, I got an idea. Let's go into the ship, get like a doomsday device, we'll level the whole forest, boom, we've done our God's will, and now whatever thing is coming next can walk right through what used to be the Gnarlwood. That's their core mission, and then on top of that is this idea of and we'll bring in any other technology that we find to our Chaos Forge Masters, right? The Dwarden running all these forge and hellfire machines. And so, to me, this is a very fitting role for the harbingers of a god of terror and tyranny. Get to the weapons cache, level the forest, bring home the goods. And so I want to end this video like I end all of my videos, just simply saying, why is this so cool? I like warbands that are simple sometimes, right? Not everything can be this epic story of a hero turned villain or whatever. Sometimes there's just really something cool about a guitar riff, a guy with, metal horns coming out of his head and a flamethrower. But even in doing that, they have created context for the greater setting. It establishes that there are warbands looking specifically for weapons, and that raises the stakes for every other warband that would enter the Gnarlwood. They are, of course, a teaser for something else down the road, or, whether or not we actually get that army, I have no idea. I have no insight at all. It's just written as a way to give you a teaser for something else. Which is fine. I just fully expect, if we do get a Chaos, Dwarden, let's say Infernal Dwarden book, right? We'll call it that. This warband better be in there. I don't know if it's going to be in the Slaves to Darkness one, but if you're calling them the Vanguard, they better be in that book. Now, another lore bit that I want to throw in here at the end as we're kind of unwinding this, one of the cool tidbits they have about their helmets is that each one of them is custom made. If you are wearing a helmet, that means you're sort of the more advanced style of unit within the warband. Only the lowest rungs of dregs don't wear helmets. And what they do is they custom create this magnificent looking helmet to the best of their ability. So each one of them has to be a smith, essentially, a craftsman. Then they heat that sucker up till it's like white hot and put the helmet on. And the idea is it burns to their face and like sculpts them. And I just, as I was like looking at this, they never take their helmets off after they've sealed it to their skull as a sign of devotion. And I look at that and I'm like, man, the Lumineth Realm Lords have nothing on them and their stupid bull helmets. These guys take it to the next level and they look better doing it. You know what? Maybe the Lumineth guys would look way cooler if they had flamethrowers. I don't know. GW didn't give us that opportunity. There's no contest in this who wore it better type situation. But kind of getting back off to our main point here, I love the idea of Warcry warbands as precursors to future releases, because I know nothing about the Chaos Dwarves really, but the amount of times that Demon Forges and Infernal Machines were mentioned, I am into it. And it's a great example of how Chaos operates. Yes, these are just the Vanguard arm, but that means they still have autonomy, right? They have a warlord with a mission, and that mission is way, beyond his scope of what he can do. He can't personally burn down the Gnarlwood. But with that autonomy, he can go seek glory and have this huge mission about, finding the weapon cache and detonating the entire thing. Like, it's just a stuff of cool stories. And to me, that's really the space where Games Workshop does the best storytelling in my perspective, right? It's not at the head of these grand armies with these big war offensives. Some of those stories can get very, very hard to track as well as visualize, because if they have like very strange, unimaginable arcane defenses, it becomes a little bit abstract in your mind. But like the sergeants, if you're doing 40k, the lesser warlords, if you're thinking like Warcry, or even just a warband leader like from an AOS unit, where stories of how these warbands rise and fall are so connected with personalities at the top. So learning about them, learning about the Horns of Hashut, teaches us about the army, the Hashut army that should exist. And by that logic, we actually learn quite a bit. Chaos Dwarf and Focus, they have lots of machines and industry. I fully expect war machine slots to be a massive inventory, like for those guys. Like, everyone's going to care how many war machines you can take in a game if you're talking like demon cannons coming out of the ground and stuff like that. I also just like the idea of like a Chaos Dwarf faction with all their machines looking across at the Carrigan Overlords, and the Carrigan Overlords like, that thing got a Hemi in it? Everyone's like roaring the engines like it's a crappy movie, drive-in movie thing. It's going to be awesome either way. So anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'd love to read them. Check out Not Just Gaming if you want to grab any of these things. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll catch you next time. Happy wargaming.